I believe that there is a connection between all these old places worldwide. And at least in Europe, you can clearly prove it. You can show it. Over Europe are so-called sacred lines. Sometimes they call it ley lines. But what is such a line? For example, just take a ruler, take a map of Europe, take a ruler, make a line over the map. And by coincidence, of course, this line will always cross some villages, no doubt. The problem is only in Europe, we have such a line, and under the line, every place is an archaeological place, a prehistorical place, like a few stones, stone rings, dolmen, menhir. It's all prehistoric. Now you can say, okay, it's still coincidence. Just make a line over the map. No, it's not coincidence, because all these villages have the same root words. You can prove it. You see, for example, Calais, Mont-Alec, Lalex, Lalexon, etc. This crosses even the Alps and ends down in Sicily. So under the line, you do not only have archaeological prehistoric sites, all the villages have the same root word in it. And that makes it provable. It cannot be coincidence. Well, for example, we have one of these lines over the Pyrenees. The Pyrenees are, on one side is France, and on the other side is Spain. Now the Pyrenees are mountain, and there is one line crossing the Pyrenees. And of course, this line crosses again several villages. The problem is, the villages are not only prehistoric places, every word in every village contains the name star. If you look at it, for example, les étoiles, French, the stars, Lucella means the stars, all the line crossing the Pyrenees, and, for example, Aster means the star. The leading place is Santiago de Compostela. Stella is the star. And this from prehistoric time, so it cannot be coincidence. They call it the Street of the Stars today. The extraterrestrials ordered our forefathers, please make this, because your generations later, thousands of years later, will realize it, and they will ask the real questions. It's just the lines which go for thousands and thousands of kilometers from the north of Germany, crossing Switzerland, crossing the Alps, crossing Italy, ending in Sicily. It's just a line for thousands of kilometers with the same villages, and in the villages, some prehistoric, mysterious sites. So you can prove it's not coincidence. You see, our prehistoric time, they had difficulties to cross the Alps, for example. They did not know what is on the other side of the Alps. The Alps this is a border of 4 kilometers high, 4,000 meters high. So somebody told them, okay, make your holy place, but please make it exactly here and here and here and here. They knew the future generations will stumble over it. You see, one of these lines crosses Brittany over Stonehenge, crosses Europe, crosses the Alps, and ends right in Delphi. Delphi is the holy place in Greece. Delphi was the place of the god Apollon. Apollon again was a son of Zeus. And Apollo did not come by coincidence to Delphi. Apollo, so says the legend, Apollo was surrounding in a flying chariot the earth. And there, in today's Delphi, he realized that there were people, humans. They wanted to learn them. That was the reason why he came down in Delphi. The people at that time were still technologically seen primitive. Apollo taught them how to construct houses, houses on a mountain and on a hill so that the houses would not fall down even if it's a hard rain, for example. Apollo also teach them in astronomy. Apollo had a son, Asclepius, and he was the doctor in medicine. He teach the humans in medicine. Apollo itself, it says, he had the flying machines, flying wing, and every year twice, Apollo left Delphi and flew to a faraway land in the far north. So the legend of Apollo is connected with flying. I had a speech in Delphi some years ago, and after my speech, there were a professor of archaeology coming to me, and also a high Greek military. He was from the Air Force, the Greek Air Force. And they told me, Erich, do you know that all these old holy places in Greece, they are linked together geometrically? I say, no, this is not possible, because Greek is a land full of mountains and hills. And some of these places, they are in the ocean. You know, islands like Crete, you cannot see it by the naked eye. It makes no sense that they would be connected geometrically. The next morning, I was invited at the airport, at the military airport, and the professor of archaeology was there, and the commander-in-chief of the Air Force also, and they had a gigantic map of Greece on a table. And I asked them, but what do you have to do with archaeology? I mean, you are a man of military, of the Air Force. What do you have to do with archaeology? And he said to me, Erich, it's pure coincidence. Our young pilots, which we teach, they always have to make some exercise. For example, exercises in shooting, exercises in measuring, etc. And by the end, when they come back from their flight, they have to fill out a report. And it was curious that most of the pilots always in their reports have used the same amount of gasoline. And the military man said, we think, come on, what is this? This is not possible. Simply they started to measure and they realized it's always the same distance between one place and the other. That's how it all came to light. And the man simply showed me, look, from one point to the next, it always makes the so-called golden section. Always the same distance from one point to the other. And I said, how is this possible? Because in Greek, we had brilliant mathematicians. For example, Euclid was a mathematician. Pythagoras was a mathematician. Even Plato was writing about Greek mythology. So I said, well, they calculated this somehow. And the professor of archaeology said, no, Erich, this is a mistake. Because all these places were holy places already in Stone Age time. Only later, for example, in Delphi, we have today a temple called Apollo Temple. And the Apollo Temple is constructed over Stone Age walls. The Stone Age walls are much older than the today's Apollo Temple, which dates from the classic Greek, more or less 2000, 2400, 500 BC. All these places are older, so they have nothing to do with Euclid, with Pythagoras, with Plato, with these mathematicians. They existed all before. So now I was at this airport, and the professor of archaeology took a compass and said, Erich, you can prove it very, very easy. Just go with the center of the compass to any archaeological place, for example, to Delphi, or to Epidaurus, or to Knossos, it doesn't matter. And then you point another archaeological place, a second archaeological place, and then you make a circle. The circle will always cross at least 2 other holy places from antiquity. And you can repeat this game 28 times. So every coincidence is out. It was done on purpose. Somebody in antiquity told our Stone Age ancestors, okay, you want to make a temple in our honor? We are happy to hear this, but please construct it only here. And the next one, you construct it only here. They knew in advance that thousands of years later, the humans would fly, the humans would measure their countries, the humans would realize of a sudden, my God, all these old places in Greece are linked together geometrically, even with the Mediterranean Sea. And this cannot be coincidence. The question is just why. Extraterrestrials, some thousands of years ago, they left somewhere a proof. With the proof, I mean something, I have no word of it, I call it a time capsule. Something which cannot be destroyed. And in this time capsule, they would tell, we were here from that and that solar system with that and that technology. We found your mankind at that time. We helped them, etc., etc. We will return in the far future, then and then again. Now, if you create a time capsule, a message for future generations in the far future, how will you hide this message? Can you put it in a pyramid or in a temple? It makes no sense, because throughout the thousands of years, there might be wars. There might be religious leaders who will destroy the temple of the earlier religion, etc. Or there are earthquakes, or tsunamis, or whatever. Everything can be destroyed throughout the thousands of years. So they must find a place to deposit their time capsule where throughout thousands of years it cannot be destroyed, wherever that place is. For myself, the most logical place would be in orbit. They simply bring their time capsule, their message, in a satellite, and bring the satellite in orbit around the Earth. Now, during thousands of years, this satellite would turn around the Earth. No one can destroy it, no earthquakes, no animals, no dictator, no one can destroy it. And only the space travel generation would be able to find it, to collect it, because all the other generations, they could not understand the message. If, for example, they would have left their time capsule somewhere in a pyramid. Now, archaeologists, let's say 200 years ago, in the past, they find this message. And they would even be able to read it. They would say, well, it's mythology. Somebody is talking about the stars, but this is impossible from the stars. It must be mythology. So it comes out with speculation. They don't take it for serious. So this time capsule has to be addressed for a society which knows space travel. Now the problem is, you found a place for a deposit of the space travel, somewhere on Earth or in orbit. How do you manage it that the generations in the far future will go and look for this time capsule? If you don't know that somewhere there should be such a, you will never go and look for it. That's why they told our ancestor, be it in French Brittany, make these lines of stones exactly geometrical Pythagorean triangle. They told our European Stone Age people, okay, make your holy places, but only on that and that and that position, because they knew gigantic lines of 3,000 kilometers and more would be the result of it. That's why they told the ancient Greeks, okay, you wish to make a pleasure in our honor, please do it, but only on that place and that place. They knew exactly that generations in the far future would realize it, this geometrical pattern. Now they would come to their head, what's wrong here? How is this possible? Someone may come up, have we maybe been visited by extraterrestrials? And if yes, they will say, well, extraterrestrials would not just have left us without a proof. There must be a proof, a writing, a message, a time capsule somewhere. But without the geometrical pattern, the generations in the future would never come up with the question. So you have to make these things in the past, that the future generation is buffed. Say, hey, what's this? We have a fact of the geometrical pattern, and we have the fact of these holy places, and they are all thousands of years old. They are all created in Stone Age time, not in classical Greek time, long before Pythagoras, etc., Euclid. So we have the miracle. We have the fact, these things exist. We have the question. There must be a time capsule. Now it's time that we go out there and look for a time capsule. You see, our astronomy today, with the space shuttle, it would be easy to go up there to look if there is an artificial satellite up there. But nobody does it, because nobody has the question. Now we live in the time where we have the questions. Now we should take the courage to go out there, to measure our solar system and look if there is an artificial object. The time capsule of the extraterrestrials. We know of different artifacts which are surrounding the Earth since long, long time. They were up there before the first satellite of the Russians, Sputnik, and later the American satellites were there. We know it for sure. But in science, it is normal to always look for the next plausible, natural answer before you look for some fantasies. So the natural, scientific answer for these artifacts which do exist in orbit is it must be a piece of rock, just a piece of stone, which by coincidence came into the gravity, maybe from a meteorite who exploded. By coincidence, it came to the gravity of our solar system and surrounds our planet. So that's the next possible scientific answer. That's why they do not spend money to go there and collect this artifact. But definitely, we know of some artifacts which surround our globe in different orbits before we started our modern space travel. The gods were the extraterrestrials. Our ancestors admired the gods. The gods were the teachers. Our humans could not understand how can someone fly up there? How can someone have weapons, lightning, strange things? Our humans did not understand the technology, so they adored the gods. The gods were in reality extraterrestrials. And the gods tell them, make your temple or your place here, because it is linked with the gods, at least for our ancestors, some thousands of years ago. They were holy places. The ley lines are definitely not natural lines. They are definitely made by humans. All these holy, sacred places are put in one line because the so-called gods wanted it that way. So ley line is nothing natural. Ley lines are made artificially by humans, but in order of the gods. When you have small lines, French Brittany, you have lines which are 2,860 meters. That's nothing. There they could do it, humans, just without the gods. But soon as you have lines crossing the Alps, 3,000 kilometers, or in ancient Greek, you have this geometrical pattern where every prehistorical site is linked together with the next one. And you cannot see it by your eyes. It is not possible that, for example, an old Greek priest says, hey, okay, the next temple we make there, because there are mountains between them. You cannot see with the naked eye. Or from Delphi, you cannot look with the naked eye to the island of Crete. Somebody has to guide you. You cannot do it by the naked eye. And the guidance came from the extraterrestrials, the gods. These holy places, they exist since eternity, since Stone Age time, so nothing has changed. You can change nothing there. There are books on the market, for example, from a New Zealand pilot. His name is Bruce Ketty, and he has a walled grid, which these lines go all over the planet, including in faraway Peru, Easter Island. All these places are linked together. But this is not my research, which I can personally confirm, because I did not make this research. But it's out in the books of Bruce Ketty, is his name. He was an airline pilot for Air New Zealand. And his books are on the market, and he says there is a wall geometry all linked together. I know it for sure for Europe, the so-called ley lines, because you can prove it with the same names, the same the root words, and you can prove it definitely in Greece. All you need is a compass, and you have places linked together in the same distances. The reasons for the ley lines and for this so-called holy or sacred geometry are us. The extraterrestrials ordered our prehistoric ancestor, make your temples on that and that place, because they knew the future generations, thousands of years in the future, they will measure their countries, they will fly, and then they will realize that this geometrical pattern cannot be coincidence. So it is made on purpose. And now they come up with the questions. That's exactly what we have. Extraterrestrials, were they here? Where is the proof? Where is the time capsule? Without the geometrical pattern, we would never ask the question. That's why it has to be done in the past.